Today we're going to talk about properties of real numbers. And you'll find out that there's a bunch of properties, and we're not going to go into a ton of detail with these, but we're still going to go through them and just give you the basics. The first one, which I want to talk probably the most about because we use it probably the most, is distributive property. Distributive property simply says that if I have A times B plus C, or A times a quantity of B plus C, then that equals AB plus AC. You simply distribute. Okay, so quick example would be something like negative 2 times x minus 6. Distribute negative 2x plus 12. Okay, pretty simple right there. Let's talk about commutative property. Okay, there's two commutative properties, one of addition and multiplication. Commutative property of addition says that if I have A plus B, so if I'm adding two numbers, okay, that would be the same thing as saying B plus A. So it doesn't matter the order. You can add 3 plus 4, and that would get you the same answer as adding 4 plus 3. Commutative property of multiplication says A times B is the same thing as B times A. And again, that would just mean 3 times 4 is the same thing as 4 times 3. Associative property. Okay, again, you'll see that we have two of them. Associative property, the word associate would be the root word. And so that's saying if I am adding A plus B first and then C, that would be the same thing as if I were to add, if I were to add B plus C first and then A. So if you associate these together first and then that, it's the same thing as if you were to associate these together and then that. And multiplication goes the same way. If I were to take A, B, and then multiply by C, it doesn't matter if I did that or if I did this. Okay, so the order in which you do that doesn't make a difference. And you'll notice that most of these properties, if not all these properties, involve adding and subtracting. When you talk about division and subtraction, these properties don't follow. Okay, let's get into a couple that you might not be so familiar with. Identity property of addition. Identity property says if I take a number and add 0, you get that same number. So in other words, the identity of this number doesn't change when you add 0. And that's why sometimes you'll hear that 0 is called the additive identity. Multiplication isn't the same. It's not add or multiply by 0, but rather it's multiply by 1. Okay, and that's why you call sometimes you call 1 the multiplicative identity. The inverse property of addition says if I take a number and add its opposite, you'll end up with 0. So you'll end up back at the additive identity. And the inverse property of multiplication says if I take a number and I multiply by its reciprocal, I get 1. So in other words, I get back to the multiplicative identity. And last but not least, this one we use quite a bit when we solve equations, or I shouldn't say quite a bit, but we do use it sometimes. And it says the symmetric property just simply says that A plus B equals C. It's the same thing as if I were to flip it around. It's the same thing as saying C is equal to A plus B. Okay, it doesn't make a difference.